Right, okay, so now we have the exhaust. This is now the sacrificial engine which I mount everything to. This is the ported head because the 200 and the 160 head flanges are different. I'm about to cut a standard exhaust gasket and elongate the hole slightly. Anyway, so the reason the flange is at such an angle is on the standard exhaust, they come straight up. And in fact, the port goes straight. So although this looks like it's at an angle, the actual outlet is almost dead straight. This is why it's got this angle on it, and there's nothing on there at all. So it goes from 28 to 34, and then to the exhaust, which is just a standard motorbike exhaust. I'm more than willing to sacrifice a little bit of power for a much sweeter sound. I'm not a fan of the Robertson and the torque tubes. I've got nothing against them, they're just not for me. So I've gone this sort of design instead. All the brackets are made up. They're going to be galvanised and then anodised. I'll do that next week. But yeah, it's finished. Oh, apart from the oxygen sensor, which is going to go there. So yeah, more updates to come. Okay, so now we're on to the electronics of the engine. I've got a 350Z hall sensor being powered by my bench supply at 5 volts, which is its rated voltage. I've got the oscilloscope connected up to test the output of the hall sensor on the Mini Clubman trigger wheel, which is a 60 two-tooth missing, and I'll just do this by hand and I'll show you the reading we get. And there's the missing tooth or teeth. I'll slow it down. So that confirms that the EFI control, which is the crank sensor, is now working as desired. That's turned off. Just spin it again. Now it picks up. Cheers. Right, so now we're on to the fourth bearing support. So this is the bearing support that I've made with the bearing inside. First of all, this is a 23mm shaft which the bearing sits on. Well, they don't make a decent 23mm bearing. They make these and they've got no guts to them at all. They are a proper bearing. They sit in the spindle of a cycle, like a bicycle. Even with two, it's still not enough. It's just nothing. So I looked at the next best thing, and that was an SK8 bearing, but they only do that as a 25mm. So there's a 1mm shim in there, which then brings it down to the 20mm for the shaft. Right, so the way I made this is I made the disc first of the correct size, and these are normally M6 with an 8mm dowel, so you can position the charging circuit accurate behind the flywheel. So once I've got the bearing sorted, I then made a dimple which I could then place in the dowel points, and then I was able to get an accurate position for the bolt holes. Once I'd done that and confirmed it all fitted, I then machined these out to 8mm M8 bolts, and then because this sits on the back so it faces this way, I wanted to make sure the bearing couldn't slide backwards, so I made another small disc cap. So there's a shoulder for the bearing to sit on now, and there's also a shoulder the bearing sits in now, and there's about 0.2 of a mil float that the bearing can move if it needs to, not that it should. And this fits behind the trigger wheel flywheel. It's quite a tight fit, a mark where I know the position that I should fit it at. That's the false bearing support, and then this fits in front of that. Now that's all sorted, so I'll just show you where it all locates. It's quite simple. So we've got an extra bearing support for the crank, which will probably end up breaking because I'm going to just abuse it so much. That's it. So that's bits finished. Next thing, we'll probably be starting to build the engine up electronically. Now it's all sorted. I've ordered the ECU and everything else, so that'll be here this week. So next week there should be some sort of movement on the actual position of the engine. Cheers.